going to be doing we're calling it a retreat. Yeah. Calling it a retreat on great compassion and Bodhicitta. But to be honest, well, it's a little bit of a marketing gimmick, right? Because when we just say, you know, lecture, people are like, oh no, lecture, it's so boring. So we essentially, where a series of lectures ends and a retreat begins, it's a little bit a fine point. But what I did hope to do, because, oh, and Sebastian, before you sit down, before you sit down, Sebastian is one of our very most committed senior students who's been coming for many years and comes with a great deal of effort from her home. And last time I came, she felt that I didn't appreciate the effort that she takes to come. And so I wanted to apologize to that. And then we're going to give you the guest of honor. So please come. So please, now you just put this on your lapel. Okay.
The ladies try to have it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate this immensely because not only I come here for the Buddha, but also for you. Because you are a very good teacher. And recently, for my birthday on the 1st, I got now the best greetings from one of my former foreign students,
okay.
my former students, who said that I must let me continue mesmerizing people with my wit and humor. And she said, and your depth of knowledge, she said. I was very touched because she was herself a very bright student. And she said this message for my birthday. So I'm sharing it with you all. Belated happy birthday. Thank you.
Yes.
I want to get you some sweets maybe tomorrow, I think. Because I was running late today.
Okay. Okay. So, what I did hope to do in our weekend together, because actually, I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to come here again. It might be months and months. Yeah, I have to check the schedule, but it's going to get quite busy. So we've just started the, oh, I don't have the text. The Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra. We have just started a new kind of module or a series of lectures on this most precious seminal text of Mahayana Buddhism by the great Indian Master Shantideva. And right as we start going and gaining momentum, then I'm going to leave you guys for probably 4 months, maybe. So I thought we could have this time, this weekend, carpe diem, seize the weekend. Well, anyway, I don't know Latin for weekend.
Months and months?
Because I'm upset. No, I'm joking. Just happens that way. Yeah, there's different things going on. I'm going to Bodh Gaya. There's the winter debate session at Sera. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with my schedule, but it looks a bit difficult. And here we go again. There's always obstacles, Sebastian. So, anyway, I thought we could just have a intensive weekend and see how much we can get through the text, as well as do some meditations based on the content of what we're studying here. So then, in the time that we have apart, you'll have realized bodhicitta by the time I come back. Okay?
What is the exact time span you'll be away?
I don't know. Who knows what the future will bring, Subhashini? But it's entirely possible that I won't be here again until April of 2019. Well, actually, it's entirely possible I will never come here again. Right? It's possible. I could get hit by a truck. You know, it's possible I'm not even here tomorrow, although it's on the schedule. Right? But, please touch wood. I want to come tomorrow. I want to come in 2019. I don't want to die for a very long time. But, okay, Sebastian, I'm going to entertain you for your birthday gift. I'm going to answer this question, but then I have some material I want to get through, okay? So this is what's going on. We have, I'm actually on my way. On Monday, I'm going to Khor for Dharma purpose. Not just, no. We have to, I'm not just going for a holiday, okay? Because they're opening a center there, and we're doing a inauguration, and then I'm leading a retreat. So, yeah, I know, my classmates are also skeptical. They gave me the same thing. Okay? Then I'm back next Monday. But our winter debate session at Sera starts on the 23rd for 3 weeks. And it's a very intense time. The monks from, Drepung and Ganden, the other major monasteries here in South India, we're all going to be coming together and debating day and night. It's very hard to get away at that time. Then, I'm off to Bodh Gaya, the place of the Buddha's enlightenment, because His Holiness the Dalai Lama is first, there's a conference on one of Lama Tsongkhapa's major texts, and then he's teaching for about a week. Then I come back down, and I have my final exam of the year on January 11th. Thanks for the good luck wishes. Okay? Then, almost immediately thereafter, I'm turning right around and going back to Bodh Gaya. Because in these teachings that His Holiness is giving at the end of the year, there's a very precious cycle of initiations. And I'm not advertising this, I'm just stating the facts. But there's a precious cycle of initiations which is meant for a little bit more experienced student. If you go, then the requirement, the commitment you make to the Dalai Lama is that you'll do a certain retreat, which involves the recitation of 100,000 of the Miksema, which is, anyway, this one practice. So I have been asked by Root Institute, the center there, to lead that retreat. So that will be from mid-January to mid-February. Then after that, I'm going to try to go back to the US. Because there's sentient beings there too who need benefit. Then if I do go, I'll go for about a month, and then I'll come back in the last week of March. Okay? Yeah. But then, whether I come here on my way back to Sera, maybe I'll do that. But it depends on you too, right? So be on your best behavior this weekend. Don't rest on your laurels, as they say.
In fact, I didn't want to wear that, but
No. Yes. Okay? So, that's my schedule, my whereabouts. Anyway.
So the retreat is for 1 month in Bodhgaya?
Yes. Yeah.
1 month I mean, what happens in that whole month?
The retreat.
I hope a lot of virtue. We'll be, meditating, speeding our path along to enlightenment, hopefully. But that type of retreat, it's one of the preliminary practices to recite that certain miksema 100,000 times. So it's there's a whole meditation associated with that. Okay. So, okay? Thank you. That was your birthday present. Happy birthday. But now, back to the main thing. Okay? Alright. Anyway, so what I thought to do is go through this Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra, and in particular, we're going to kind of jump around a little bit, because we're going to focus on the cultivation of Bodhicitta, which is the mind, the altruistic intention to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then we'll also do the actual meditations that are described in here. Okay? So, anyway. Maybe let's just start, actually, with a short meditation on the breath, to kind of center ourselves and get into a good mental state. Okay? So, actually, before we start, how many of you, is it your first time coming here? Okay. Great. Okay. So we'll start with the basics. Okay? When we meditate, then, especially in this tradition, a lot of attention is paid to the posture. And so, we want to get into a kind of disciplined, yet relaxed posture, where most important thing is that, your back is reasonably straight, so you're not hunched over. So kind of starting from the bottom, going from the bottom up, you can have your legs in the half lotus posture. Full lotus is the best, but some of us, it's a little bit difficult. And then with your hands, some have on the lap, on the knees like this. Then here, you'll often see this in the lap, the left hand down first and the right on top with the thumbs touching. You can experiment with that. If you're already, doing a practice with this kind of mudra, that's also okay. And then have a little bit of space between the elbows and the body. But again, most important thing is to have a straight back. So then think and just center yourself that your nose is over your navel. Then you can also think that a string is pulling you up to the ceiling at the top of your head. And then have the shoulders kind of, not rounded, so you can roll them up and back, opening the chest. And then slightly tuck your chin into your neck, like this, see? Which will elongate the back of the neck. And then, if normally you wear glasses, it's better to take them off for the purpose of this meditation. And then, it's also good to keep your eyes just slightly open to allow a little bit of light in. you already have an established meditation practice, using your eyes closed, that's okay. But if you're starting off, then I would encourage you to try with the eyes slightly open. And keep your mouth closed, but the teeth not clenched, so relaxed. You can put your tongue on the roof of the mouth, and then just for a split second create a little bit of suction in the mouth to take out the excess air there. And then especially the facial muscles should not be flexed. So especially around the eyes, the eyebrows, the mouth. Make sure that you're not holding any tension there. Then you can continue down through the rest of your body. And just try to become aware of whether there's any tension being held, especially in the shoulders. When you notice there is some tension, then by bringing your awareness there, think that you're releasing it. Then continue down your body, scanning it for areas of tension and releasing them where they may occur. So now, after we're in this meditation posture, having released all the tension, we will continue with what is called mindfulness of the breath meditation. So now one can bring your awareness to the abdomen, the belly, the stomach area, and notice that as we inhale, the abdomen expands, and as we exhale, it contracts. So now, although we say it's mindfulness of the breath, what we're really doing is becoming aware of the physical manifestations of the breathing in and out in our body. So it's easiest to do with the abdomen rising and falling, expanding and contracting. But here we're just working with the natural breath as it is. So it doesn't matter if our breaths are long or short, but just become aware if they are long or short. We should watch the breath like an impartial observer, just noticing what is there, being fully present. trying to maintain connection and focus to our object of meditation. And the other things that appear to us, to our minds, like the sounds outside, or other thoughts that might come, then we don't engage with them. We can be aware, but don't engage, don't continue the mental chattering or the mental commentary. And if we don't engage in these thoughts, or we don't engage in the sounds, then they'll naturally dissolve in the very next moment back into the nature of the mind. So for us beginners, it's also helpful to count the exhalations to give our minds something, a little task to work with. So breathe in as normal, naturally. Then at the end of our exhalation, just mentally count 1. Breathe in. Exhale and count 2 and so forth until you get to 10. When you get to 10, start over again at 1. If your mind has gotten distracted to the point where you lose the count, then just gently start again at 1. And we'll do this for just 5 minutes. So now gently come out of the meditation and bring your awareness back to the room. So, my new friends, how was that? The instructions were sufficient? You know what we're trying to do? Whether or not we can do it or not? Right? Okay. Great. Okay. So, yeah. As I like to say, you know, that is a very excellent foundational meditation. And actually the rest of the weekend, as we do other types of meditation, we will start with that. Because it does give us some kind of space in the mind. Whereas normally, we're in a very reactive mode. I don't know about you guys, but we're bombarded with stimuli, and then we react, constantly react. So what this tries to do is create some space whereby we allow things to arise and pass away. Okay. Was that 5 minutes? After I stopped talking?
8 minutes.
8 minutes. Oh. Okay. I was thinking about the beach in Goa. I really wasn't. I wasn't perfectly concentrating on my breath, but I was at least not thinking about the beach in Goa. Okay. Okay. So now, last time I was here, who came? Sveta, Subhashini, of course. Okay, Wangdu, Achana, Shanti. Okay, don't be shy. Or was the samosa in your hand? It's okay. No, enjoy. Okay. Okay, so 5. Sadhana, you were here for some of it. Okay. So, for the benefit of people who weren't here, I'm going to just go over a little bit what we went over. Okay? Those of you who were here, it's a review. But you see, this is the point, right? We are actually going to be studying this whole text in the coming months here. We had 1 weekend of lectures on it. So this, we're going to be taking out the most important parts about Bodhicitta and going over it this weekend. But you see, the name of this text is Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, right? So, well, what makes someone a Bodhisattva is the presence of Bodhicitta. And what is Bodhicitta? But the mind, citta, aspiring for enlightenment, bodhi. So, yeah, it's all related. But I also thought, since there's some very new, first time coming here, that I would also just start with a general overview of, the Dharma. Is that okay? Our experienced students? Is that okay, Sebastian?
Sorry, I said.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, I have my stock quotations that I use as a diving board to introduce the Dharma. You guys notice that? Yes. How's the samosa, Shanti? Watching you eat it, it seems very delicious. I'm joking. Okay? So some of you who have been to a few lectures of mine, you probably know, right? The stock stanzas that I use as a diving board to introduce Dharma, right? Okay. Today I'm going to do something different to begin with, and then I'm going to go back to my classic material. Okay? So here actually in Bodhisattva's way of life, Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra, you can turn to page 5. Right? Stanza 28, right on the bottom. Although wishing to be rid of misery, they run toward misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. So who's they? Us. Okay. Page 5, stanza 28. Okay? So, they is us. So this stanza also, it describes why we need Dharma. You understand? You see, the very starting point, the kind of, foundation of everything that we're doing is our desire not to suffer, not to have misery, and our wish to have happiness. Right? Everything that we've ever done, this is my hypothesis for you, everything that we've ever done from the time when we emerged from our mother's womb has been in this very elusive quest to be free from suffering and or to get happiness, right? The baby crying, wants the bottle or the diaper change or the food or something, the warmth, the mommy, whatever it is, right? Then going through life, do I have to convince you of this? Right? We all want happiness and want to avoid suffering, right? Yeah. But you see, Shantideva is actually echoing a sentiment of the Buddha himself, right? You see, we want to be free from suffering, but what do? We run toward suffering itself. And although we want to have happiness, we destroy, we destroy it like an enemy. Okay? So, like an enemy, they means us, ignorantly destroy it. Okay? So this actually is coming together with one of the fundamental, themes in the Buddhist thought. This thought of cause and effect. Cause and effect, right? So, all compounded phenomena means a phenomena that arises due to causes and conditions, right? They have their own certain causes. Okay, like for example, a mango tree will sprout from a mango seed, not from a lemon seed, right? So everything doesn't just arise from everything, but compounded phenomena have their own particular uncommon causes, right? Okay. So both suffering and happiness are compounded phenomena, and they have their own respective uncommon causes. Okay? So, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. Okay? So this thought of ignorance, then another key theme within the Buddhist thought, right? That why do we suffer? Well, because of our own ignorance. Right? And this ignorance then exists, unfortunately, on many levels, right? But just to break it down, there's a kind of, a conventional or a more worldly type of ignorance that doesn't understand the connection between our suffering and our negative actions, and our happiness with our positive actions. Okay. So, most of the time when we suffer, we have a kind of, we play the blame game, right? And what do we blame? Others. External conditions. I thought you said ex-girlfriends. I was like, well, yeah. External conditions, ex-girlfriends. External. It's the Freudian, you hear what you... yeah, right? The external conditions. But actually, you see, one of the... Now I'm getting into my stock material, right? As Buddha says in the Dhammapada, right? Do not commit a single negative action, accumulate a host of virtuous actions to thoroughly subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of Buddha, right? So one of the main insights that the Buddha discovered and then taught was this, relationship between our suffering or happiness and our own actions, right? This thought of karma meaning action, right? So, since we don't want the effect of suffering, right? The effect is suffering, we have to then abandon the cause, negative actions. And since we don't want to have even the slightest type of suffering, we therefore cannot commit the slightest, not a single negative action. And on the flip side, since we want to have happiness, we need to accumulate the cause, virtuous actions. And since we're never satisfied with the amount of happiness that we do experience in the world, we can never be satisfied with the amount of virtuous activity that we're engaged in. But then, what actually determines whether an action is positive or negative, virtuous or non-virtuous, is primarily the mind with which, that motivates or initiates the action. Right? So, in general, the actions motivated by the so-called afflictive emotions like anger, jealousy, pride, attachment, greed, so forth. They then, impel us to then harm others, or with anger we kill, right? With attachment, we, cheat on our boyfriends. With greed, we steal, right? So, and then on the flip side, with positive emotions like compassion, then we will perform charity. Right? And with patience, we won't respond to anger with anger, and just, let things go. So that's one level where, this third line of that stanza, to thoroughly subdue one's own mind, right? We need to thoroughly subdue our mind so that first we can get our actions under control, right? Because, what motivates our positive and negative actions are our kind of emotional life, right? But on an even more fundamental level, well, I'm not sure we're going to get into this much this weekend, but the kind of root of all of our afflictive emotions is a particular type of ignorance that misconceives the way that we exist. Let me just break this down in a little way, okay? So, as Dharmakirti, the great Indian master Dharmakirti says in the Pramanavartika, right? First we have the sense of the self, then we have the sense of the other. And then all the other mental faults arise from that. Okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, you see, we'll get into this in detail. Even in this text, we'll get into this. But we probably won't talk about it here for another year. Okay? But just for now. You see, we all exist. Okay? You exist. Okay? Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But you see, the way that you exist, that is the area of the fundamental confusion that binds us in samsara, the cycle of suffering. Sorry, let me say that again. You exist, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But the way you exist is, the source of the fundamental confusion that binds us in samsara, the cycle of suffering. Okay? This actually is the unique contribution of Buddha, right? To then identify what that ignorance is, and then, how that ignorance leads to samsara, the cycle of rebirth, of uncontrolled suffering, uncontrolled rebirth, and then how to overcome that ignorance by realizing the correct and proper way that we exist, and thereby attaining the state free from samsara, which is nirvana. Okay? And that, in a nutshell, is the subject matter of the Four Noble Truths, yeah, which was the Buddha's first sermon after he was enlightened, right? So in that we have, the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Okay? But to put it in more layman terms, that's what I just did, right? This suffering, uncontrolled suffering of samsara, right, is what we're all experiencing. Why? Because of this fundamental ignorance that then leads to the other afflictive emotions. Because it's like this, right? We have a fundamental ignorance about the way that we exist, right? Then once we have that, just for now, think of it as a kind of larger than life sense of I, right? After that is operating, the things that then harm that I, we then want to harm back. Therefore, we get angry and then, harm back, right? The things that we see benefiting this I, well, then we have attachment. We want to cling on to, right? Then, of course, pride, thinking this I is, better than it is. All the other kind of branch afflictions go off from the root, the fundamental misconception of the self. Okay? So that is the second noble truth, the truth of the source or the cause of suffering. Right? But, next, the truth of the cessation of suffering. Right? Although we've been experiencing nothing but samsaric suffering since beginningless time, there is actually a way to cease it, right? Cessation, to cease, to end, to stop. Right? That exists. A state like that exists. And how? Since the kind of main root cause of the cycle of samsara is a mind that essentially grafts on to something that doesn't exist. Okay? See, the self exists, but the mind, the ignorant mind, grasps to a mode of existence of the self that is impossible and fantasized. Right? So actually the object of the grasping mind doesn't exist. You understand? The object of the grasping mind, the grasping ignorant mind, isn't the self that does exist, but instead is a kind of fantasized, impossible mode of existence of a self, which doesn't exist. Okay? So, since that object doesn't exist, when we, through repeated reflection, analysis, we can come to discover the lack of existence of the object held onto by the ignorant mind. Then, that mind that realizes the reality of how things exist will serve as a direct antidote to the ignorance. Right? Because you can't have, one mind that views one object in two contradictory ways. Right? Yes? Okay, anyway, that gets a bit technical. Take one step back. So that mind that discovers the truth of how the self then exists serves as a direct antidote to the ignorant mind that misconceives the way the self exists. And then through repeated familiarization, we're able to abandon the ignorance. Abandon means that, no chance that can arise again in our minds. Wow. And that is what nirvana is. Because the fuel of samsara is this ignorant mind grasping to the impossible fantasized mode of existence of the self, The mind that discovers the truth of it, you know, is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Right? Fourth noble truth. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Is your question related to what I've just talked about?
Yes, just.
Then yes.
When you say the fantasized idea of our mind, of the self,
Okay.
which we have,
Yes.
and it is due to that ignorance, as you call it, is responsible for not seeing the correct way that self exists. So I just want you to give me a little bit more on that in terms of an example or, you know.
Okay. Yeah. See, this is just the teaser. This is the teaser. You know, for the movies, in the movies they give you like a 15-second little trailer. Okay. So I was saying, we're really going to get to all this in the 9th chapter, which will probably start in at least a year from now. But, and by the way, Subhashini, oh, where's your guest of honor badge? That has to remain on.
Actually, that should be on Shanti.
No.
Because she's a person who's doing a lot for the center.
I do appreciate your gratitude toward Shanti, and you should express it to her directly.
Because I didn't really feel that you didn't appreciate my coming or anything. What happened was I had a very bad cough and cold, and I was...
Oh my gosh.
Now let's stop. Okay.
Okay. But Sebastian, you have been coming for years and years, and I've given you quite a few examples over the years on this. But for the sake of our newcomers, okay? Let me just try to give it a little taste, okay? So, here's one just simple example, okay? When we talk about the I, right? I. We also talk like, you know, my body, my mind. My body, my mind. So normally, this sense of the possessor and the possessions, you get me? So, you know, my cup, my book, right? They're the possessions. Who owns it? I. Right? But we have this, you know, the possessor and the possessions are different, right? And you can have, like, I can lose or I can give away all my possessions, right? Give away my book, give away my cup, and I'm still here, right? Okay. Then, when we start to talk about my body, my mind, okay, we have a sense of the body and mind being the possessions of whom? The I. Okay? So the mere grammar, you know, strongly suggests there's a independent possessor, the I, you know, that possesses the body and mind. Right? But, like, you know, the cup and the book, my cup, my book, now I give them to you, it's no longer mine, but I'm still here. Can we, first of all, you know, pinpoint what this I is that's possessing the body and mind? Okay, that's one thing to think about. There's your homework. We'll talk about it again a year from now. Okay? Second thing, looking at old photographs of ourselves, right? And say, you know, at our, whatever, graduation, oh, that was me, that's me, right? We talk like that? So, the next thing to kind of investigate is a sense of a kind of, you know, an I, a me, that is somehow persistent over time, right? We don't say, you know, oh, that was me when I was 18. That's not what naturally comes. We think that was me, right? Then if someone asks, oh no, yeah, that was me when I was 18. Right? Okay? So, in that sense, there's two things. There's a sense of an I, independent from the body and mind, and there's a sense of an I that is somehow durable, yeah, kind of enduring through time. So, now, just let me say this. Remember when I said you exist, don't let anyone tell you otherwise? So I'm not telling you otherwise, okay? You do exist, okay? But remember, the way you exist, that's our confusion, okay? So, with this whole conversation, we have to keep in mind and not lose hold of conventional kind of worldly validity, okay? Because what can, I don't think it would be much a risk with you intelligent beings, but you could imagine someone coming to a lecture like this, you know, and they hear about impermanence, right? And they hear my example of the, you know, graduation photo, and they might think, what? Is he saying that's not me? And then take it a step further and then like, okay, we're impermanent. So the me of yesterday, you know, no longer exists. Oh. And then take it another step. I like to joke, you know, we then borrow money from someone, and then when they ask for it back, you say, oh, sorry, the person you lent money to, they no longer exist. They disintegrated. Impermanence, causing conditions. So, I didn't borrow the money from you, right? Do we say that? No. If we say that, we're actually losing, you know, the worldly, conventional, valid existence. Okay? So we need to be careful not to go too far. But, coming to the point of, you know, the very famous middle way between the two extremes of complete non-existence or nihilism and eternalism, or a reification of a mode of existence that is above and beyond what's actually there. And that's why I say fantasized, you know, just projected by the mind, you know. Is that okay? Yeah? Yes? It's something, remember, it's something to analyze, right? If I could, like within 5 minutes, or even 5 years, dispel all your doubts about emptiness, you would give me one of those, like, world's greatest teacher. Right? You should. So this is something, as Aryadeva says, right? Those with little merit do not even doubt this doctrine. But even entertaining a doubt about emptiness tears the foundations of samsara to shreds. Kind of a loose translation. Right? So this is the point, right? You see, most people don't even ask these questions. Right? Or when they hear it, they'll be like, what? What is this guy talking about? No, of course I exist. Of course that's me at my graduation. Right? They don't really see the need for questioning. And so they don't. But if we're not satisfied with that, okay, sorry, let me first say. If we are satisfied with that, we can, by the way, operate perfectly well in the world. Right? We can pay back people that we've borrowed money from, right? We can identify ourselves and our friends at our high school graduation. All these things operating in the world, perfectly valid. Conventional, valid existence. Okay? That we need to, leave. We need to not touch that. That's fine as it is. Okay? So, given that these things all exist conventionally in the world, leave that. Then we bring up our kind of skepticism and we try to inquire further and say, okay, something is fishy here. Did you guys say that? Something is fishy? Yeah. Okay. Did you say that? I didn't know why we said that for a while. Do you know why, actually? See, when a fish goes rotten, it smells quite bad, right? So, see, there could be a fish rotting somewhere in the room, but you don't know it, right? But you smell that. Oh, something's fishy here. Okay?
We also say we smell a rat.
Okay. Right? Okay. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Don't apologize.
I was just wondering when you were explaining Dharma, isn't it possible that you suffer on the way of Dharma itself by getting so attached to the view that you want to get enlightened, or by studying so much and all the canons of Buddhism that you say that I know so much right now, so you get attached to the views? How do you free yourself from such ignorance which is couched in knowledge? Plain simple ignorance is easy to distinguish and let go of.
Yeah. So did everyone hear? Oh, what's your name, sir?
My name's Avik. Avik.
Avik.
Yeah.
Okay. Did everyone hear Avik's question / comment? Okay. So, yes, it is a danger, for sure.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So Avik was saying, what about the kind of, ignorance that comes, after a lot of study? We can then get very prideful. And wouldn't that then just serve as a barrier in itself? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, right? That was the essence. So how do we distinguish that? Okay? You understand?
Distinguish between what?
The kind of good, good pursuit of knowledge that helps us along the path to liberation, and when that pursuit of knowledge becomes an obstacle in the path, rather than being something that furthers us along the path. Yes? You understand the question? Okay. So it is, something we need to look out for. And only we know, right? There's a saying that we need to use the Dharma like a mirror, right? To, use it to look at our own minds, our own situation, our own faults, rather than use it, to point out the faults of others. And the kind of benchmark that my own teachers have said is that, every so often, right, the way that we measure our progress isn't by how many texts we can recite by memory or whatever, how well we do in the, debate exams or anything like this, but is to see whether our afflictive emotions have, declined in the past period of time, year. It's very hard to measure on a day-to-day basis, just like, whether we've gained weight or lost weight, right? You can't see day to day, but someone you meet after some months and they're like, whoa, you've gotten fat. Yeah. Anyway, so in a similar way, with ourselves, then we need to assess honestly. Okay, am I, decreasing my afflictions? Am I increasing my positive emotions, and so forth?
It's kind of self-introspection.
Yeah, which is actually at the core of the practice, as it says in the precepts on mind training, of the two witnesses, right? There's the external witness and the internal witness. Then to place more importance on the internal witness, right? So although everyone can praise you, or you're such a great meditator, you're such a great scholar, then I had a small glimpse of this because we recently had exams, and I didn't study that well. I'd gone to Singapore just in the month right before the exams. I went for 3 weeks. It was great. I went to receive teachings from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And I brought my books. I'm like, okay, the teachings will be, it was Wednesday and the weekends. So I'm like, yeah, the rest of the week, I'll be hitting the books. I'll be very diligent. Didn't really happen that way, Then I got back 2 weeks before the exams and was really trying to play catch up. And I was able to review about 60% of the material, But on the day of the exam, I got a good question. So I could debate it quite well. So I scored quite well. But I knew, like, oh man, you know, there's some big holes in my knowledge. So I was actually not happy. Anyway. So, yeah. You know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche himself, who is the spiritual director of the center, a great master. I hope you're able to meet him one day. Not just one day, many days. But you know, in recent years he's been saying this. He says it like this, you know. Even if you have memorized the whole Kangyur is the Tibetan for the Buddha's sutras. It's 108 volumes. Even if you can recite that by heart, even if you can give very detailed explanations and commentaries of, you know, all the texts, even if you're debating, you know, Nagarjuna and Chandakirti day and night, going to pujas, meditating on this stuff. So, by the way, he in Singapore, where I just was, he started into this, right? And he was talking about, like, the monks, even if you were debating day and night. And I had this thing, I don't know if I told you, Shanti, but I then looked around the room, you know, because what I do at Sera, my monastery, we're a monastic university, that's what we do. We debate, we memorize the texts, right? So I was looking around the room, and I was like, oh, maybe it's me. But then he says, you know, well, he says different things at different times, but then he was saying, if you don't remember impermanence and death, then, you know, there's a big risk that all those other actions don't become dharma. Right? So, what it means for something to become dharma means that something becomes an antidote to your afflictions. Right? So, you're very right. Even the, how do you say, memorizing the text, being a kind of accomplished scholar, publishing books, whatever, right? Having thousands of students, that in and of itself doesn't mean it's dharma, right? I'm reminded of a very famous story that, you know, many of you have heard, but there's a great Tibetan master, Drompa Trungpa, who, you know, met this man who was, I don't know, you know, circumambulation. So, you know, you would walk in a clockwise circle around a holy object, a stupa or a temple or something, and it's a way to pay homage. And by doing so, I mean, it is said in the traditional text, one accumulates a lot of merit, a lot of positive you know, virtue. So, Drompa Trungpa goes to a particular temple in Tibet, sees an old man going around, you know, circumambulating, and says, oh, it's great that you're circumambulating, but it'd be better if you practiced Dharma. So the man was like, oh, okay. So then, the man says, okay. Must practice Dharma. Okay, what is everyone else doing? Okay, I'll recite the texts, you know, the sutras. So then he sits down in the temple, gets the, you know, the sutras out, reading them, reciting them out loud. Jontumba comes back, sees him and says, "Oh, it's great that you're reciting texts, but it'd be better if you practice Dharma." So then the man's a bit more confused, and then says, okay, I'm going to meditate. So then, they're in the monastery grounds meditating. Then Jontumba comes again, says, "Oh, it's great that you're meditating, but it'd be better if you practice Dharma." Then the man says, wait a minute. What does it mean to practice Dharma? And he said, give up this life. Right? Give up this life. You understand? So, see, the very minimum kind of bar and standard that, we should set for ourselves, is based on the reflection that, this life is impermanent, right? And our future lives are endless. Well, very long. Yeah. So, I'm tying these two together now. Why Rinpoche was saying, those people, if they don't meditate on death and impermanence, then all the other activities is a risk it doesn't become Dharma. Why? Right? So the meditation on impermanence and death, right, really puts everything into perspective, right? Because all those things, what we normally talk about, I think we'll get to it in this text, but the so-called 8 worldly concerns, fame, there's 4 good ones: fame, gain, good reputation, and pleasant experiences. And they're opposite, to be, bad reputation or criticized, loss, and unpleasant experiences, right? Those things, for worldly people, that's the main thing in life, right? So, I often ask people at beginners courses, right, or even us actually, whoever, when you go back to work on Monday and people ask you about your weekend, or you ask others about their weekend, what do they say? How was your weekend? I had a great weekend. I went to this, great, I don't know what you guys do. I went to this great club on Saturday. I saw this great band. Ministry of Blues, was it? Huh? Is it? Is that the name of your band? I saw this great band, Ministry of Blues. Right? Then on Sunday, I had a great brunch. Man, the French toast was so fluffy. Anyway, I don't know what you do, right? But you can imagine that conversation on Monday, right? No. Right? Yes. So what makes, I had a great weekend because, and then we list all these worldly things, right? Oh, I had a bad weekend. Why? Oh, my car broke down. Whatever. There was a leak in my my roof. I had to, all this stuff, right? My girlfriend dumped me. Here we go, right? Yeah. Get me? So you see, the first step in the Dharma is to then say, okay, well, actually, because my future lives are more important than this life, right? all these other things, blame, gain, loss, all this stuff, doesn't matter. At the time of my death, all that stuff, you know, as they say, right, you can't take it with you, right? Whether 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, 1,000,000,000 people, all, you know, adore us or despise us, the only thing we take with us to our next life is the imprints on our mind stream. So, thinking in that way, then, you know, it becomes very clear what we need to do, how we need to prioritize our time, our activities, our lives, right? So please, you know, although we keep that in mind, then we do need to kind of have that sweet spot, right? Whereby, you know, although there may be people who become prideful about how learned they are, we don't then just say, okay, then I won't study, right? Just like, you know, there's people who, I don't know, after they work out a lot, they, you know, they get a good physique and they become prideful of that. But then we don't say, oh, because they're these prideful people, I'm never going to exercise, right? So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So as we engage in, you know, the practices that may or may not be Dharma, right? We have to make sure they become Dharma by keeping our motivation proper. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like grace energies. The paths of glory lead but to grave.
Ooh. Yeah, I feel I'm on a quite environmental push these days. So I'm gonna ask, could someone just refill it from there?
Would you like any hot water or something?
No. Just normal water. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask a related question to this?
Um,
One small one.
no. It's never small with you.
This is small, very small.
I've given your birthday gift already. Look, Sebastian, we have 23 more minutes.
Okay, continue with you.
Okay? So I kind of, went a bit all over the place, but I do appreciate the question. But it actually served the purpose of introducing the Dharma. So what I thought I was going to talk about at the beginning, I've basically covered those points, but not in the way I was going to. So that's fine, that's good. Okay? So to get back to the stanza that I was starting with, although wishing to be rid of misery, they run toward misery itself, although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy they ignorantly destroy it. This shows why we need to practice. Don't get a battery. No, Shanti, stop. It's okay. This thing bent, so it's okay. Okay? This shows the big picture, the need to practice Dharma. We need to practice Dharma because we want to be free of suffering and we want to be happy, but our strategy for getting happiness and avoiding suffering, we're not succeeding. We're not doing very well because we have these different levels of ignorance, confusion as to what actually leads to happiness and well-being and what leads to suffering. Right. So then, yeah, as it says in one sutra, right, that the Buddhas do not wash away negativities with water, nor do they remove suffering with their hands, nor do they transfer their realizations to another mental continuum, but they liberate sentient beings through teaching the reality. Okay. So, then all of these texts, all of these treatises composed, are means to uncover these different levels of confusion and uproot them, as well as to increase our positive qualities. Okay? So that's the Dharma in general. Okay? Now, Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. The text that we are now going through here. So last time, when was that? A month ago, maybe. We started this text off, and we started in the tradition that was practiced by the great masters of the ancient Buddhist monastery, Vikramalashila, right? Where a lecture was given, starting with three things. The greatness of the author of the text, the greatness of the teaching, and then how one engages in, both teaching and listening to a teaching that has those two greatnesses. Understand? So we did a very brief biography of Shantideva, the author of this present text. And just by means of review, the key point is Shantideva was what is called like a hidden yogi. Hidden yogi. He had actually a very bad reputation in his monastery. They thought he was, they called him the one who engages in three activities: eating, sleeping, and defecating. Yeah. Because to common appearances, that's all he seemed to be doing. Right? If that really is all you're doing, it wasn't like he was, going out, drinking or carousing with women or something. He wasn't doing like an explicit, punishable offense, right? People just thought he was lazy. So they devised a way to, they thought, embarrass him to the point where he would, on his own accord, leave the monastery. And so they established a new rule that everyone needs to give a lecture. And so they invited him and said, okay, give a lecture on Dharma. And they thought he would just embarrass himself so much that he would run away in shame. But, as it turned out, he started to give a lecture, and he gave this, the Bodhisattvacharyāvatāra. And, well, it was amazing. And actually, in the 9th chapter, which is a chapter on wisdom, it is said he started to levitate, and then he disappeared, but you could still hear his voice. Anyway, then they found him in South India afterwards. He was in Nalanda in Bihar, and then, I don't know, I think he went to the beach in Kerala or something. Not sure. But anyway, whether or not, because some of these biographies of the masters, right, it's very, yeah, I don't know, whether we can just accept it. But, you see, when you read and study this text, then you can see, kind of, you can infer the cause based on the effect, right? At a place where there's smoke rising, you can infer there's fire, right? So, the mere fact that this text exists, we can infer that the master who wrote it had certain amazing qualities. Okay? As long as the Dalai Lama, then what he says is that everything that he has learned about Bodhicitta, he has learned from this text. Okay, we'll talk about Bodhicitta in a minute. But anyway, so the greatness of the author, greatness of the teaching. Yeah. How to listen to and give the teaching? Well, basically abandoning the 3 faults of a vessel, right? Which means, like a glass upside down. Can't pour anything into it. So, in a similar way, when we come to the teachings, then to, pay attention. I see Wangdu with your pen in hand. Very good. The leaky pot, the leaky vessel, even though you come, even though you've been coming for many years, then even though you've been listening, then when we leave, well, not really reflecting, not studying then our notes. Even if we take notes, then, just on our bookshelf, not engaging in study. Then what happens? The knowledge, even if we do gain some knowledge in our time coming here, it's not stable. It leaks out. So we need to avoid that by, continuing to bring the teachings to mind, reviewing, trying to integrate our knowledge on a deeper level, right? Then the last fault of the container is the dirty container. So even if there's a glass or container that is upright, no leaks, it is dirty, even if you pour nectar into it, it's not suitable to be consumed. So this is talking about having a proper motivation to coming to the teachings. And, one that abandons they were the concerns. So not thinking that, oh, after I receive these teachings, then I'll in turn become a very famous teacher. Or actually, if you want to become famous, there's many better ways to do. So like that. And instead, they also talk about having the 6 awarenesses to help us have a proper motivation. Is to 1, see yourself as a patient, a sick person, right? 2, to see the Dharma as the medicine. 3, to see continued practice or application of Dharma to be the way to recover. Can you hear me over the firecrackers? Good? Okay. 3, that continued practice is the way to recovery. Right? 4. Am I becoming a Ligipad? 4 is to think that the Tathagatas or the Buddhas are excellent beings. 5 is to think that or to have the aspiration that the Buddha's teachings remain long in the world. And the 6th.
I think medicine or doctor.
Oh yes, doctor. Thank you. It wasn't the 6th that I forgot. It was the 3rd. The Dharma, you as a patient, the Buddha as a doctor, the Dharma as medicine. Yeah? The continued practice over a long period of time to be the road to recovery. And then to think that Tathagatas in general are beings. And then to wish that the teachings remain long in the world. Okay. That is what we covered last time. So now, at the beginning of the actual teaching on this text, and normally when there's a teaching on any text, a lot of consideration is put into the actual title. Okay? So I'm going to just review that again. And then probably we're out of time. So I might be able to entertain one question by our non-guests of honor. Okay? So, as I alluded to before, Bodhisattva, okay? Bodhi is enlightenment, right? Sattva means being, more or less, right? So it's a being who is intent on enlightenment. Means that their primary motivating force in their lives is this mind of bodhicitta, an altruistic wish to achieve full and complete enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So now, last time, we very clearly laid out a few of these terminologies about what's the difference between full enlightenment and the mere attainment of nirvana, right? Yes? So, we already in this session talked about samsara, the uncontrolled process of rebirth due to our karma and our afflictive emotions, or our klesha, right? So by getting rid of the ignorance that misapprehends the self, we get rid of all the afflictive emotions, and that is how nirvana is attained. But we distinguish the attainment of mere personal liberation from samsara, right, with the attainment of full enlightenment. So the Buddha attained, what is called the, Dzogbe Sangye, fully complete enlightenment, or Samyak Sam Buddha in badly pronounced Sanskrit. Okay, whereas his main disciples, Shariputra, Moggallana, Ananda, and so forth, they attained the state of mere liberation from samsara. Okay? Now, what is the difference? This was, well, there are many differences, but the most salient one, the most important one for our purposes is, you see, remember this ignorance I was talking about that misapprehends how our self and other phenomena exist? Okay? That is the root cause of samsara. So, the people who attain nirvana, they get rid of that ignorance by meditating on reality, the ultimate nature of reality. Okay? Now, although they have then, after repeated meditation, attained the state of nirvana whereby they've abandoned ignorance, there's what we call the latent bakjak, or imprints of ignorance on the mental continuum, okay? Which, in this system, we then posit as what is called the obscurations to omniscience, okay? So, we say that the Buddha is omniscient, all-knowing, okay? And why that is important is, with the omniscient mind, the Buddha can then, and does, teach exactly according to the needs of the people that he is teaching at that moment. Okay? And so, the upshot of this, when you actually look into the sutras, you might see some, on the face of it, contradictory passages, right? But that was all what we call skillful means. Skillful means, you know, to someone who isn't a suitable receptacle for the kind of highest, most profound teaching, the Buddha would teach something that is more kind of gross, like stepping stones to the more subtle, more advanced, yet difficult to comprehend, you know, ultimate nature. Okay? So, remember, oh, no, I didn't really say this explicitly, but the impossible fantaside mode of existence is an independent type of existence, an inherent existence that, does not depend on any other phenomena, and rather exists in and of itself. Okay? That mode of existence does not exist. Okay? But that way of explaining things is the way that the sort of highest, subtlest, most kind of advanced Buddhist philosophical tenet system explains things. But it's a bit difficult. Right? So, the Buddha also taught on other occasions that the mind actually does exist inherently. You know, the mind being the kind of, you know, kind of basis for all of our experience, right? If there's no mind, there's no experience, right? So then, it's like the mind is primary. Therefore, the mind inherently exists. The mind is always there, right? He taught that. That's not the ultimate view. That's actually wrong. But for some people, if you taught them, you know, nothing exists in and of itself, they would freak out and fall into the nihilistic view that therefore nothing exists, right? Anyway. Only then, right, could someone who's truly omniscient know exactly what type of teaching is going to be most beneficial for the people in that scenario, in that audience. Okay? So anyway, those who then go on to attain full enlightenment, they not only have abandoned the seeds. Seeds means the potential for the ignorant mind to arise again in the future. They not only have abandoned that, but also the subtle imprints in the mind, right? That then serve as the main obstacle to the attainment of the omniscient mind. Okay? So, why do we want that? So we can benefit beings in the best way. Okay? And so, you see, this wish to benefit others, and therefore, seeing I'm unable to benefit others very profoundly as I am now, but if I were to attain the state of full enlightenment, I would be able to do it in the best way possible. Therefore, I need to attain enlightenment. That basically is the kind of mental steps that we need to take in order to become a bodhisattva, in order to attain this mind of bodhicitta, this altruistic wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay? So, this text then describes the way to develop the mind of bodhicitta. Right? And then, as great as that mind is, right, as great as the wish to attain enlightenment is, well, it's not sufficient. There's different trainings, other trainings that we need to practice and engage in. And so Shantideva in this text also explains those. Okay? So, my time is up. But what I wanted to say is, what I'm intending for this weekend is we're going to go over tomorrow the first, chapter, which describes bodhicitta, the benefits of it. Then we're going to actually jump to the 8th chapter, where it describes the way of actually developing bodhicitta. And we're going to complement what we're studying in this text with the outlines or other texts, primarily Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, as well as this other text by Wonka Rinpoche, Liberation of the Pondering Hand. Anyway, then on Sunday morning, what I thought would be good, from chapter 2. It's a kind of ceremony, actually. Well, it can be used as a ceremony to actually take the Bodhisattva vows. Okay? So, those of you who want to, we can all do it together. And then, sprinkled in the rest of the sessions, we'll also be doing the meditations to cultivate bodhicitta. Okay? So that's what I thought we could do this weekend. Sound good? Alright. So we have a full day tomorrow. We start at 10.
10:30 was the message.
Huh?
10:30. 10:30.
So you're not my boss? Boss?
It was announced as
The
10:30.
WhatsApp said 10:30.
So what is it, 10 or 10:30?
10:30 to 12:30, then lunch, and 2 to 6.
It was 10:30 to 1.
Okay.
I saw the latest one was 12 to 10:30 to
Okay. So, 10:30. So usually, okay, when we say 10, it's people roll in at 10:30. And then when I say, hey, you guys, you're coming late, then people say how difficult it is for them to get here. right? So, then it's up to you. 10:30 means,
Should be here by 10:50.
well, you know, the real 10:30, right? So it's up to you. Do you need me to say 10 so you come at 10:30? Or can I just say 10:30 and you're here at 10:30? $10:20. That means, Subhashini, you, okay? You're quoting WhatsApp to me. It's very great you're offering flowers to the Buddha. You do that before I start talking tomorrow. Okay?
I normally don't do it while
Yeah.
you're... Huh?
No, I don't care about normally. I'm saying tomorrow. Let's focus on the future. Don't dwell on the past. Tomorrow, please bring offerings for the Buddha, but you're going to do it before I start talking. Okay, deal?
Okay.
Yes. So then, 10:30. Okay? We can have that French toast, the fluffy one, so that we can then go back to work on Monday and say we had a great weekend. Okay? Sebastian, you don't look amused. Okay, anyway, so yeah, let's end now. I hope you learned something. Yes?
Thank you, Venerable.
Okay. So let's turn to page 246 in this gold book. Just some dedication prayers. So, you know, coming together, trying to engage in virtuous activities like this, we create a lot of good merits, which is the cause of happiness in the future. But rather than just having our merits then ripen as wonderful French toast experiences, right? We want our merit to be most beneficial for all sentient beings. And that's why we dedicate our merit, okay? So we can do it like this. Okay, 246. So please think that due to the positive energy that we've created in our time here together, right? May all beings everywhere plagued by sufferings of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, causing happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. I'm sorry we didn't have opportunity for more questions, but we have all day tomorrow, so I will entertain more of your questions then. And yeah, have a good evening.